Grants and perhaps moratorium. Why loans? Don't you think that can also help impact in the situation, particularly with Nigeria as a case study?
So I think here again, it's about trade-offs. I'm an economist, and economics is essentially the kind of a discipline that looks at trade-offs. There are always, if you do one thing, it means you may not be able to do something else. So the trade-off in this particular case is to enable the World Bank to have the financing to continue to provide financing into the future. So imagine if we have $1 billion that we can use to support Nigeria and other African countries. If we were to give it all out in grants right today, we would do that once and we would be done. Instead, if we were to give it, as we do in the case of Nigeria, as a 30-year loan at a very low interest rate, it's about 2.5% per year, with an initial grace period of between 8 and 10 years, what that means is that effectively it is in many ways like a grant, because that's why it's called highly concessional, but there is some repayment which then enables us to continue to provide this kind of concessional financing going forward. So that really is the trade-off. Now, I think everyone would agree that it would be great to have a world where we were able to provide even more concessional financing. And believe me, from my perspective as country director for Nigeria, I'm trying to make that case all the time. How can we get more concessional financing, not just for Nigeria, but for other sub-Saharan African countries? But ultimately, that financing, for it to be concessional and not commercial, it has to come from somewhere. So that's where governments in other countries have to decide, and taxpayers in other countries have to decide, yes, we want to do this. And that's part of it also what we try to do, to help make the case why it is in the interest of the global community to provide this kind of concessional financing so that countries like Nigeria is the largest country in Africa, it's the biggest economy in Africa. Nigeria's success will determine where the region, the continent goes. So to help Nigeria succeed, it is in the interest of other countries to expand the pool of concessional financing. But in the meantime, I think we continue to try and provide as much concessional financing, but it will be as a credit rather than as a grant.
All right, Mr. Shubham Chaudhury.